There are poisons that destroy a man long before a sword ever touches his flesh. They don't come from enemies, but from people he calls family, friends, lovers, allies. They eat away at respect, twist the meaning of love, and convince you that tolerance is virtue. But Machiavelli warned, the greatest downfall of strong men isn't hatred, it's misplaced mercy. Every empire that fell began with one small compromise, one tolerated insult, one moment of silence when you should have spoken. You don't lose power in an instant. You lose it drop by drop, moment by moment, through the behaviors you allow to live unchecked around you. This is not a lesson for the naive or for those who want to stay comfortable. This is for those who want to build lives, reputations, and legacies that cannot be destroyed by manipulation, betrayal, or guilt. Because strength isn't just about fighting your enemies. It's about knowing when to cut off your own, when they start corroding your foundation. So today, we expose 7 behaviors that you must never tolerate. Not from strangers, not from friends, and not even from blood. Because loyalty, respect, and trust are not birthrights. They are earned through action. And the moment you let emotion blind you to reality, you hand your power to those who'll use it against you. Stay until the end, because what you'll hear here isn't comfort, it's survival.
Behavior 1. Disrespect in disguise. Disrespect rarely begins with open defiance. It starts quietly, in jokes, in tone, in subtle gestures that seem harmless at first. A brother mocks your goals. A friend laughs when you speak seriously. A partner interrupts you in front of others, just teasing, while everyone else chuckles. You brush it off because you don't want to seem sensitive. But Machiavelli would tell you, the first tolerated insult is the seed of your downfall. Disrespect is the testing ground for control. People don't challenge your authority outright. They start by poking your boundaries to see how far they can go. If you stay silent, they learn something crucial. Your limits are negotiable. And from that moment, you're no longer being treated as an equal. You're being tested as a target. Families are often the worst offenders because they hide behind the excuse of familiarity. They say, "Relax, I'm just joking," or "You know how I am." But behind that smile is a small statement, "I don't take you seriously." And when someone close to you stops taking you seriously, the decay has already begun. Machiavelli observed that in the courts of power, small acts of disrespect were often more dangerous than open rebellion. Because rebellion declares itself, you can crush it. But disrespect hides in laughter. It erodes authority invisibly, until one day, even those who once obeyed you begin to mirror it. If someone interrupts you constantly, dismisses your achievements, or speaks about you as if you're lesser, that's not personality, that's positioning. They are positioning themselves above you while convincing you to accept it. And once you accept it, they never go back. You might think, but that's my family. They don't mean harm. Let me remind you, blood does not guarantee respect. You can share a name with someone who secretly resents your strength, envies your confidence, and mocks your growth just to keep you small. And because you care, you'll laugh it off. You'll explain it away. You'll keep forgiving. Until one day, you realize you've built an empire where everyone jokes about you, except you. Machiavelli's principle was simple. Never tolerate what you do not wish to repeat. If someone disrespects you once, it's a test. If they do it twice, it's a message. And if you ignore it 3 times, it becomes a rule written in stone. A rule that everyone else around you will start to follow. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. When you let a person continually cross you, it's not because they're strong, it's because you're afraid of conflict. You're afraid that drawing the line will make you seem cruel, cold, or prideful. But a man who avoids conflict to keep the peace will end up living in chaos anyway. Only this time, it's chaos ruled by everyone but him. Respect isn't built by speeches, it's built by boundaries. When you calmly but firmly say, "Don't speak to me like that," or "That's not acceptable," you're not being harsh. You're preserving the order of your world. Because without order, love becomes manipulation, friendship becomes mockery, and family becomes a battlefield where only the most shameless win. Even kings were destroyed not by open enemies, but by courtiers who laughed behind their backs. Because the moment laughter at your expense becomes normal, your throne becomes a joke. And every man watching learns the same lesson. He allows this. So, the next time someone makes a harmless joke that cuts deep, remember this. They are measuring your silence. Every time you let it slide, they take another inch of your dignity. And one day, when you finally decide to stand up, they'll laugh harder, because to them, your words no longer carry weight. Machiavelli's wisdom is not about pride, it's about preservation. If someone you love refuses to respect your boundaries, your silence teaches them that love can be used as leverage. And once love becomes leverage, respect is gone forever. So never tolerate disrespect, not even from those closest to you. Because once a person stops respecting you, they will soon stop fearing your loss of you. And when someone stops fearing your loss, they can destroy you without remorse.
Behavior 2. Emotional manipulation. Not every attack against your strength is physical. Some come dressed as affection. Some hide behind tears. And the most dangerous of all come from the ones who say, "I'm only doing this because I care." Machiavelli understood the cruel paradox of emotion, that people who cannot control yours will learn to control you through theirs. They will guilt you, shame you, and twist your empathy into obedience. And the more you care, the easier you are to bend. Emotional manipulators don't need to raise their voices, they just need to raise your guilt. They will cry when confronted, play the victim when caught, and make you question your own perception until you start apologizing for things you didn't even do. A mother might sigh and say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." A friend might frown and whisper, "You've changed. You used to care." A lover might withdraw their affection, forcing you to chase their approval just to feel at peace again. But Machiavelli would call that what it truly is: emotional warfare. A battle fought not with swords, but with guilt. Because when guilt becomes your master, you no longer act by reason or strategy. You act out of fear of disappointing others, and that is the first stage of control. The manipulator's weapon is your compassion. They know you can't stand to see others hurt, so they exaggerate pain, dramatize misunderstandings, and twist your empathy into chains. They will tell you that you're cruel for setting boundaries, selfish for saying no, and heartless for wanting peace that doesn't involve them. Do not be deceived.
There is a difference between love and control. Love respects your choices even when they hurt. Control disguises itself as care while slowly stripping you of your independence. Machiavelli once wrote, "The one who controls your fear controls your actions." But in the modern world, fear often wears the mask of guilt. If someone can make you feel guilty for protecting your own peace, they own a piece of your power. And over time, they'll use that power to reshape your decisions, your loyalty, and even your sense of identity. This is why strong people become weak, not because they lack courage, but because they confuse guilt with goodness. They think being good means constantly forgiving, constantly fixing, constantly giving second chances to those who keep wounding them. But Machiavelli would tell you that is not goodness. That is surrender. Never tolerate emotional manipulation, because the person who can make you feel guilty for doing what's right will one day make you feel proud for doing what's wrong. And once they can reverse your moral compass, your downfall becomes self-inflicted. Remember this, a manipulator never wants peace. They want permission. And every time you say, "It's okay, I understand," when it clearly isn't, you give them exactly that. If you want to stay free, learn to recognize the difference between emotion and manipulation. Emotion communicates. Manipulation calculates. One is human. The other is strategic warfare dressed in sympathy. Walk away from anyone who uses your love as a weapon, because love is sacred, and when it becomes a weapon, it kills everything it touches.
Behavior 3. Subtle betrayal during hardship. Machiavelli wrote that loyalty means nothing when the sun is shining. True loyalty is revealed when the storm begins. When everything is easy, everyone is kind. But when you're in crisis, when the money dries, when the influence fades, when you're blamed for things beyond your control, that's when people show you who they really are. You'll recognize betrayal not by daggers, but by silence, by messages left unanswered, by people who once swore, "I've got your back," but suddenly have a lot going on. They vanish not because they're busy, but because they've begun calculating whether you're still worth standing beside. That's how power decays, not through sudden rebellion, but through quiet absence. Those who once crowded around you start stepping back, one by one, waiting to see if you'll fall. And if you do, they'll tell others, "I always knew something was off." But if you rise again, they'll reappear, smiling, pretending they never left. Machiavelli warned, "The one who disappears when needed most is not neutral. He is announcing your fall." And yet, people forgive this all the time. They call it understanding. They say, maybe they just didn't know how to help. But absence is not confusion. It is a decision. And it tells you exactly who will sell you out the moment your power trembles. Betrayal during crisis reveals the hierarchy of loyalty around you. There are those who stay because they believe in you, and those who stay only because they benefit from you. The first group will stand firm, even if the world collapses. The second group will scatter the moment they smell weakness.
And here lies the cruel truth. If you forgive those who abandoned you, you teach everyone else that loyalty is optional. You create a world where standing by you means nothing, where trust becomes a joke, and where every ally secretly prepares for your downfall. You don't need to rage. You don't need to expose them. Just remember who was silent, because silence during your struggle is louder than applause during your victory. In Machiavellian logic, betrayal isn't just personal, it's strategic. The person who leaves you when you fall isn't gone because of circumstance. They're gone because your weakness made them realize they no longer fear losing you. And once fear fades, loyalty follows. If you want to stay powerful, never let the unfaithful back into your circle after crisis, because the second time, they won't wait for the storm to leave, they'll help create it. Loyalty isn't tested by time, it's tested by fire. And anyone who disappears when the fire burns isn't afraid of getting hurt. They're afraid of getting exposed for who they truly are. So when the smoke clears and the dust settles and you're left standing alone, don't feel abandoned. Feel enlightened. Because now you see the truth. Not everyone who smiles beside you in victory deserves to stand beside you in war. And Machiavelli's message echoes through time. The one who betrays you once does not change. He only learns how to do it better.
Behavior 4. The comfort of mediocrity. One of the quietest poisons in any life of power is comfort. Not your comfort, the comfort of those around you. The people who tell you to slow down, to relax, to enjoy what you have. It sounds like care, it sounds like peace, but Machiavelli would call it what it truly is, the soft hand of mediocrity pulling you back into the crowd. There are people who will never attack you directly, never insult you, never oppose your goals. They simply plant doubt, disguised as concern. They'll say, "You're working too hard," or "Maybe you're becoming obsessed," or "You should be satisfied with how far you've come." It seems innocent, until you realize it's the same advice given to every man right before he stops growing. These are the people who don't want to see you fail, but they don't want you to outgrow them either. They prefer you safe, predictable, manageable, a version of yourself that doesn't challenge their laziness. Machiavelli warned rulers about these voices. He wrote that a prince surrounded by men who love ease will soon forget the taste of urgency. Because when everyone around you praises balance over ambition, comfort over risk, you begin to forget that greatness is built on discomfort. The comfort of mediocrity doesn't feel like betrayal, but it is. It's betrayal of potential. And it's one of the hardest to notice because it hides behind affection. They say, "I just want you to be happy." But what they really mean is, "I want you to stay where I can still reach you." You cannot rise while surrounded by those afraid of heights. They'll call your hunger dangerous, your discipline extreme, your ambition unnatural. They'll convince you that wanting more is arrogance, and soon you'll begin to shrink yourself just to fit their comfort zone. Machiavelli would have despised such softness. He knew that every empire dies, not because of external attack, but because those inside grew tired of effort. They started celebrating stability as if it were success. And the moment they began to rest, the enemy was already preparing the assault. If you tolerate mediocrity around you, you will one day wake up and realize you've become part of it. Energy is contagious. When you sit with the lazy, your discipline starts to feel excessive. When you speak with the fearful, your confidence starts to sound arrogant. And when you keep company with the unmotivated, your vision begins to look unrealistic. That is how mediocrity wins, not by confrontation, but by quiet infection. You must cut it off early. Surround yourself with those who remind you of your hunger, not your limits. Those who see your fire and add to it, not those who water it down in the name of peace. Because a peaceful life lived beneath your potential isn't peace, it's paralysis. Never tolerate the comfort of mediocrity. Because the man who tells you to rest while your destiny still demands work is not protecting you, he's soothing you into stagnation. And no empire was ever built by men who were satisfied.
Behavior 5. The envy of the close. There is a kind of enemy that prays for your success, just not too much of it. They smile at your victories, but secretly measure them against their own. They'll clap the loudest in public, but grind their teeth in silence. And the closer they are, the more dangerous their envy becomes. Machiavelli said it plainly. Envy lives nearest the throne. The ones closest to you are the ones most likely to covet your position. Not strangers, they have no personal stake. But those who grew beside you, who shared your struggles, who once called you equal, they're the ones who cannot bear to watch you surpass them. Envy is rarely shouted. It whispers through subtle comparisons, backhanded compliments, and disguised indifference. When you share your success, they change the topic. When you need support, they're too busy. And when you fail, they suddenly become philosophers about life's lessons. Envy makes people lose their ability to celebrate you sincerely. It eats away at affection and disguises itself as fairness. They'll say, "I'm happy for you, but don't forget where you came from." That "but" is poison. It means they can't rejoice without reminding you to stay beneath them. And because they're close, because they know your history, your flaws, your past weaknesses, their envy has ammunition. They'll weaponize your vulnerability to keep you small. They'll remind you of your mistakes when you start to grow. They'll say, "You've changed," as if change were betrayal. But Machiavelli warned, when the envious are family, you must be twice as alert. Because love blinds you to their resentment until it's too late. They won't attack you when you're strong. They'll wait until you doubt yourself, then whisper things that deepen the doubt. Their goal isn't to destroy you. It's to make sure you never rise high enough to make them feel inferior. Never tolerate envy from those closest to you. Don't confront it with anger. Don't try to heal it with kindness. Because envy doesn't want healing, it wants equality. And when it cannot have it, it seeks destruction. You can forgive jealousy in strangers, but in the familiar, it's fatal. Because when someone close to you envies your position, they don't need access to bring you down. They already have it. They know your weaknesses, your habits, your fears. And when the opportunity appears, they won't need to strike openly. They'll simply withhold. They won't warn you about dangers.
They won't defend you when rumors spread. They'll do nothing, and their silence will be your downfall. Machiavelli observed that kings were rarely killed by enemies outside the gates. They were betrayed by those inside, brothers, advisors, even sons, all poisoned by envy disguised as loyalty. So how do you deal with it? You watch, you test, and you distance yourself before envy matures into treason. The envious will never admit it. They'll say, "I'm proud of you." But look into their eyes. If you see resentment hidden behind their smile, believe the eyes, not the words. Protect your peace. Protect your growth. Because not everyone cheering for you wants to see you win. Some just want to make sure you don't win too much. Machiavelli's rule was brutal but true. It is safer to be feared by the envious than loved by them, because the love of an envious heart is not love at all. It's camouflage.
Behavior 6. Manipulating morality. There are people who don't destroy you through betrayal or manipulation. They destroy you through moral illusion. They convince you that being good requires being weak, that mercy is always virtue, that forgiveness is always noble, that self-defense is cruelty. Machiavelli would have called them the moral architects of control, because they build prisons out of ideals, cages disguised as conscience. You'll recognize them by the way they praise your kindness while quietly exploiting it. They'll say, "You're better than this," right when you start defending yourself. They'll say revenge doesn't suit you when justice is finally within reach. They'll say don't stoop to their level when you finally begin to fight back. They don't care about your soul, they care about your submission. As long as you stay moral on their terms, you stay predictable. And predictability is powerlessness. Machiavelli believed morality was a tool, not a master. He didn't despise virtue. He despised those who used virtue as a weapon. He saw that in politics, religion, and even love, people twist morality into manipulation. They demand purity from others while granting themselves the privilege of sin. That is how empires fall from within. Not because people become wicked, but because the righteous become manipulators. These moral engineers never shout. They use subtle shame. They frame every act of strength as cruelty, every act of self-respect as arrogance. They'll tell you you should forgive when it benefits them, and you should take responsibility when it benefits them again. Their goal is to make you doubt the righteousness of your own defense, to make you feel guilty for doing what any rational mind would call necessary. That's how saints are enslaved, through guilt, not chains. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn to use morality, not be used by it, because the world does not reward virtue, it rewards results. And those who cling to idealism in a world built on strategy often end up crucified by their own goodness. So beware the person who constantly preaches morality but never lives it. Their sermons are not about righteousness, they're about control. They want to decide what's good and what's evil, and once you accept their definitions, they own your conscience. If you wish to remain free, you must reclaim your morality from others' judgment. Be good by your own standard. Forgive when it feels right, not when guilt commands it. Protect yourself without apology, and never let anyone convince you that self-preservation is sin. Because the man who makes you ashamed of strength has already conquered you without lifting a finger. Behavior 7. Conditional love and loyalty. Machiavelli's final warning was about the most seductive form of control:
conditional affection. The kind that says, "I love you, but only if you remain who I need you to be." At first, it feels like loyalty. You feel seen, valued, chosen. But over time, the conditions begin to surface. Quiet, invisible at first, then suffocating. They'll love you when you agree, support you when you're useful, stand by you when they make you look good. But the moment you grow in a direction that no longer benefits them, they withdraw their warmth like a banker reclaiming a loan. Conditional love is the most sophisticated leash, because it doesn't restrain your body, it restrains your identity. It trains you to ask permission to be yourself. And the tragedy is that most people never notice it happening. They confuse approval with love, attention with loyalty, and acceptance with truth. So they shrink themselves to stay loved. They mute their opinions to stay liked. They betray their own potential to avoid being alone. Machiavelli saw this in rulers and lovers alike. He wrote that loyalty built on affection alone is fragile, because affection fades the moment profit disappears. Real loyalty, he said, comes not from emotion, but from alignment of purpose. Once that purpose ends, so does the devotion. The same is true in personal life. People's love for you is rarely about you. It's about the version of you that serves their comfort, their pride, or their illusion. When that version changes, they withdraw, and then call you the betrayer. But they never loved you. They loved the reflection of themselves they found in your eyes. Conditional love teaches the cruelest lesson, that loyalty can be lost the moment you evolve. And yet that evolution is precisely what will save you. Because those who love you only under conditions never loved you at all. And those who remain when the conditions vanish, those are your real allies. They are rare, but they are worth kingdoms. Machiavelli's wisdom cuts deep here. Never depend on the loyalty of those who love you for what you provide. Depend on the loyalty of those who love you despite what you withdraw. When you rise, some will leave. Let them. When you change, some will resent it. Let them. When you demand respect instead of tolerance, some will call you difficult. Let them. Because the freedom to lose conditional love is the beginning of real power. And once you stop fearing loss, you become untouchable. Machiavelli never wrote for the weak. He wrote for those willing to see the world without illusion, for those brave enough to look at human nature as it is, not as it should be. He knew that power is not just a throne or an army, it's awareness. Awareness of how people manipulate, deceive, and disguise their motives. Awareness of how morality can be weaponized and love can become a leash. The world has not changed since his time. Only the language of deception has. It no longer speaks through daggers and wars. It speaks through words like empathy, loyalty, forgiveness, and love. It hides behind smiles, behind concern, behind the soft tone of, "I'm just trying to help." But Machiavellian strength is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the refusal to be blinded by the good intentions that hide dark motives. It is the courage to protect your peace without apology, to demand truth without guilt, and to love without surrendering your identity. You are not meant to become ruthless. you are meant to become awake. Once you see the patterns, the flattery, the guilt, the silence, the envy, the moral cages, you stop reacting. You start observing. And in observation, you reclaim power. You stop trying to change manipulators. You simply stop participating in their game. You walk away without hatred, because hatred still ties you to them. And walking away in silence, that is the purest expression of power Machiavelli ever taught. He would tell you, the wise man never despises the darkness, he studies it. So study it. Learn how people twist virtue into weakness, love into leverage, loyalty into currency. Not so you can imitate them, but so you can never again be ruled by them. Because the world does not need more manipulators. It needs more people who can't be manipulated. And once you understand human darkness, truly understand it, you don't become bitter, you become unbreakable.